I am here with Patricia Riley, founder and CEO of Clientele Skincare. We are so excited to welcome Miss Ruta Lee, megastar of film, stage, and television, to talk about her new book. I told you I was going to have her back. Ruta, you have to tell us about your fabulous new book. Could you please tell our audience the name of it and how you arrived at that name?
Oh, I'd be very happy to. First of all, hello, everybody. Hello, Cheryl. Hello, Pat. I'm so happy to be with my clientele family.
Yay.
It's absolutely special to me. The book, which is very appropriately titled, Consider Your Ass Kissed. Now, some people might think that's saucy, but then I say, I mean it from the very bottom of my heart, in full gratitude to anybody in this world that turned on a television set because I was on, that came to a theater to see me, that bought a ticket to a movie house because I was appearing, that ever gave me money for my charity, like Pat, that provided us with all those beautiful clientele products to give to the big people that donated a lot of money to us. The best thing that I could say from the bottom of my heart was consider your ass kissed. And if anybody is going to get very testy and kind of picky about it and very Victorianish about it, I say, if Jesus could ride into Jerusalem on an ass, we can all kiss that ass.
Oh, it's wonderful.
I agree with that. I like that a lot.
I just love your book, and I'm just enjoying it so much. I can't put it down. It's just such a phenomenal read. It's so interesting because you've had 42 years in the business, and I was fascinated because you and I both had Slavic parents, and your beautiful picture of your mom and your dad in the book here, and cute little you opening up this gorgeous, handsome dad and your mother and you, and then I see you performing at a little age. You were tight. So did your mother get you inspired to perform?
She did, and while it just ages me, I have to correct you. It's not 42 years in the business. It's more like 62 years in the business. I'm an old broad, honey. It's your makeup that makes me look good. What can I tell you? But yes, my mom was in every way responsible for everything that I am or became or still hope to be in this business. And what's interesting, Pat and Cheryl, is that she was the furthest thing from Mama Rose, the furthest thing from a showbiz mother. I mean, my mother literally carried her shoes to church on Sunday in Lithuania from the little farm that they lived on, because those shoes had to be handed down to the next girl and the next girl and the next girl in the family. And, shoes were hard to come by and very expensive. And so she didn't know anything about show business or how to behave, but she did see movies. She did see Shirley Temple. And as far as Mary, my mother, was concerned, Little Ruta was her and Lithuania's answer to Shirley Temple. And so she, by hook or by crook, and it was very difficult, got me to Hollywood. Not Hollywood, Florida, near where you are, Pat, but the Hollywood where movies are made. And I owe a great debt of thanks and gratitude to a priest that had started the Lithuanian Catholic parish here in Los Angeles, St. Casimir's, of course, because my mother had written him, or he had written her and sent her little articles from the newspaper. And so she sent him a few bucks every once in a while, just supporting his lovely little church, which was on 3rd Street here in Los Angeles. The living room was the chapel. The dining room and the kitchen and the bedrooms were the house that the priest lived in. And he invited my mom and dad to come and visit. Well, they left Montreal up to here in snow in February and came to Los Angeles, where the palm trees were swaying, the birds were singing, the flowers were blossoming. It was heaven, late 40s, heaven in Los Angeles. and fell madly in love. And my mother said she cried all the way back to Montreal on the train because the palm trees were now waving goodbye to her and she wasn't sure she was ever going to see them again. But my mother's prayers and very good luck, because we couldn't get my folks on a quota to get to the United States. All the quota numbers were dedicated to the people that had survived the war on the Lithuanian quota and wanted to come to America. But somehow, I think my mom's prayers were answered and we got here. And what can I say but thank her for teaching me how to do a Lithuanian polka, which got me my first job in Seven Brides for Seven Brothers.
Oh my goodness.
Again, her prayers, I'm not sure, her polka or her prayers did it, because she was on her knees across the way in the chapel in front of MGM while I was auditioning for Michael Kidd. But my mom was responsible. And you know, Pat, you'll be very well aware of this. And of course, you too, Cheryl. I'm so glad that my mother lived long enough to see me achieve some of the beautiful fruit that you're hoping for, you know, in this garden known as show business, which is a very tough row to hoe, but oh boy, is it a lot of laughs and a lot of fun too.
You were in the heyday. You were in the time of Hollywood's greatest glamour. You were right in the middle of it, doing so many incredible roles. I loved Seven Brides for Seven Brothers, and I just thought that was the most amazing thing. I worked so hard trying to find where you were of the dancing girls, and I heard that the dancing was pretty tough. You actually...
Oh, yeah. It was tough. The dance sequences were rehearsed for at least 6 weeks. And when I say 6 weeks, I don't mean 5-day weeks. I mean six-day weeks.
Yeah.
That was before the 5-day week was instituted. And it was hard work, but oh boy, it was also wonderful, because I don't know if either of you ever knew or met Michael Kidd, excuse me, who was our choreographer. But he just made it such fun to go kill yourself for him. You know, he just did everything with a wonderful sense of humor. And he was never, he'd yell about, come on, move your ass, get it going, you know, don't just stand there. But instead of saying ballet talk, you know, 3 chassés to the right and fouette turn to the left, he would say, give me about 3 of those scrape-alongs and then one of those corkscrew jobs going the other way. So, you know, we just all laughed our way through rehearsals every day, and it was just heaven. And to think that I was dancing, a novice, me, dancing with some of the best dancers in America were in that movie.
And such good-looking men, Howard brothers. Oh, were they handsome?
And wasn't it wonderful to see these butch guys that were from the ballet and everything else, but these really masculine men doing their thing. You always think of everybody being a little light in the heels if they're in ballet, you know. And these were very, very masculine guys, every one of them. And what a divine pleasure it was.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I heard that you got paid the big bucks then of $350 a week. You wrote about that in your book. I mean, people think, well, you made millions back then. They don't realize that was millions back then. And well, what'd you do with your money when you got it, Ruta? Because that's what impressed me the most.
Oh, really? Well, you see, I learned very early in life that diamonds are not a girl's best friend. Real estate is. And what did I do but buy a beautiful piece of property in the mountains here in above Palm Springs, where we get snow in the winter. You know, it's about 7,000 or 8,000 feet. It's absolutely beautiful, in a place called Idlewild with a 100-mile view all the way around. And I had to buy it with my mother's name on it because I was too young to have it under my own name. And I paid all of my earnings, which ran about $1,500 by the time I had collected what it was. The lot was $1,500, which was a fortune to me at the time. And do you know, that my last offer on it, now it was 50 years later, was $400,000.
You never
Now,
built on it then? It's still
never built on it. It's going to go to one of my goddaughters, when I'm gone. But I'm sorry that I didn't build on it, because it's the most beautiful, peaceful, wonderful place. And the reason I fell in love with it is that USC has a wonderful arts foundation called Isomata, which is the Idlewild School of Music and Fine Arts and all of that. And I went up to take some classes. My high school teacher, dance teacher, said, come on up with me. She had a trailer up there, and we'll take some classes and so on and so forth. And it was from there that I went to MGM and did the audition and came back there. And so it seemed very appropriate to put the few dollars that I had saved and earned from Seven Brides into a piece of my lucky place called Idlewild, where I was before and after Seven Brides.
Oh, that's a great story. And it's good advice for all of the young people out there to know, invest in real estate, because if you live long enough and it's in a good area, it's going to go up, and it's going to be a great investment.
Especially now. My husband's a realtor, so especially now it's going to go up.
I know that my little Palm Springs house, and my dearest friend is in real estate, and she said, now's the time to sell, but then what would I buy? Because it would be horrendous, But she said that in Palm Springs, people are paying 100, 200, 300,000 more than asking, and buying sight unseen. That's how crazy it is.
People are really trying to buy.
That's what I hear. Yes.
It's definitely a unique situation in the marketplace. But speaking of Palm Springs,
yes,
boy, that's where I get to see you in between our little adventures here and there. And I love seeing you and Webb there in your lovely home. And I'd love to hear the story. And I know Cheryl would love to hear how Frank Sinatra and you used to hang out into the desert, and how he kind of gave you a break that really opened up some opportunities for you with some Western.
Well, he did. He opened a lot of doors for me. But above all, the story of how I got the job being the leading lady to Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin, Sammy Davis, Peter Lawford, Joey Bishop, and the Crosby Boys. Is kind of interesting in that a very dear friend who lived in Palm Springs and was known as Mr. Palm Springs was a very prominent Chicago attorney, Scotty Rubin, and he was a very gracious and very generous man. And he invited me to the reopening of the Macombo in Hollywood, one of the hot spots in Hollywood, that was having a bad time because television had come in and nightclubs were kind of no longer the big thing, And Mary Morrison, who owned it, husband had died, prevailed upon Frank, and he said, okay, I'll come in and play a week, and then Dean will come in and play a week, and Tony Martin or somebody will come in and play a week, Victor Moan will play a week. And so I was invited to Frank Sinatra's opening night at the Macombo. Now, girls, I was too young to have seen him in his heyday in New York, at the Paramount and everywhere with girls screaming, squealing, and fainting. But I, by now, have been hearing the unrequited love songs that he did, and Come Fly With Me, and all of those fabulous albums that just left your heart going pitter patter for him, And I was sitting directly under him, looking up. His orchestra filled the stage. And so he was on a tiny little dais right directly under me. And I was staring up at them. Of course, my mouth was hanging open. And a gentleman sent a note to our host, Scotty, saying, would you bring Miss Lee around to meet me and my wife? I'd like to talk to her. And so we went back after the show, and he happened to be sitting almost a little bit behind Frank, because Frank was out in front of the stage and his table was a little bit behind Frank. And he said, Miss Lee, my name is Arthur Hornblow Jr., and I am a producer, and I am producing a film right now that is called Witness for the Prosecution. And I have just given you a unique screen test. I watched you watch Frank Sinatra, and I think you would make a very good love interest for Tyrone Power in my film Witness for the Prosecution. He said, would you come in and meet Billy Wilder?
Oh.
And I said, is tomorrow too soon? And so I went in and I got the job in spite of the fact that I was blonde. Marlene Dietrich took one look at the rushes that night, shots of me and my blonde hair, and said, Nick Nine, forget it. She's blonde like me. I became an overnight brunette and I got the job. Fabulous, wonderful experience of my life working with these mega stars, you know. And
well, I have to say, I just love Tyrone Power, and I have a little tie in there too, because my father and Tyrone Power were both they were both pilots in World War II. And so my father had told me many, many years later, I didn't know that RKO Pictures had written him a letter and wanted him to go to the studios like they did to Tyrone Power, because they were two good-looking pilots. And Tyrone went. My father continued to continue in the flight of being an airline pilot. That's what he wanted to do. But I always loved, and I finally found the letter from RKO inviting my father there. And so that's a real treasure for me, because I adored Tyrone Power, and my father had that dark, handsome look when he was young. So boy, that was the heyday when you people were discovered. There you were in a club, and they gave you a screen test, and you ended up starring Tyrone Power.
So now, but listen to the rest of this. This is the part that is a magical story. Frank Sinatra, if you know anything about him, loved nothing more than having a bunch of really good friends over for a big Italian dinner at his home and running a new movie. And what's the new movie they're running? Witness for the Prosecution.
Wow.
And he says to Howard Koch, Howie, I called him, whom I worked for many times at Warner Brothers, he said, Howie, they were partners in the production company that they had formed. He said, what do you think of this Ruta Lee chick? I keep seeing her on television a lot, everything. She's cute. Why don't we put her in an upcoming picture? That's how I got to be the leading lady to Frank Sinatra, who never knew that he got me the job that got me the job in the first place.
It's a lucky
Isn't that a phenomenal story?
Yes.
Phenomenal.
Yes. It doesn't happen today. That does not happen. That's incredible. And one thing that I want to ask you, because I know we touched on it a little bit, in Seven Brides for Seven Brothers, which I'm a musicalaholic, since that's how I grew up, I've watched that movie a zillion times. And I understand that all the guys dyed their hair red because they were brothers. Is that accurate?
Oh, absolutely. They were all different colors. And especially Rusty Tamblyn was not red at all. And his came up that flaming orange, you know, when they dipped it. And God, I have a funny story about this, and I love to tell it every time we go to one of the resurrections of Seven Brides, you know, for the Screen Directors Guild or whatever it may be. He came into the studio one day with that flaming orange hair, Lucille Ball orange, you know, and he came with that hair, and he was saying, you know, mumbling and being very upset. I said, what's the matter? What's the matter? He said, I'll tell you what's the matter. He said, I stopped in a coffee shop to pick up some cigarettes. And as I walked down to get the cigarettes and pay for them, I saw ladies at the counter that were having breakfast. You know, this is early in the morning, 6:30 or 7 in the morning. And they're going, and he thought, oh, well, they're beginning to recognize me. I've done a couple of movies. Maybe they're beginning to see me as a young star, right? And so this time when he walked back to go out the door, he winked at him and nodded and gave him a big smile. And he heard one say to the other, see, Mary, I told you she was a lesbian.
Oh. Oh my God.
Flaming red hair. Guys didn't have jeans in those days, you know, they wore khakis and a purple t-shirt that had been washed so many times it was now mauve. And so there you were. So I love to tell that story on him. It embarrasses the hell out of him, but it's great fun.
And then he went on to do West Side Story, right?
Yes. So many good things.
So he went out.
Remember when he did that? Such a good acrobat and dancer, just an amazing young man, and one of the nicest people ever, just darling.
And then
now, they had a nickname for you in the book.
Pat.
You mentioned that Sinatra and the group had a nickname for you, and I thought it was a scream because everybody had a name. Let's talk about the Rat Pack, the names and the name they gave you.
Well, of course, the Frank, of course, was the Pope. You know, that was it. He was the chief. And the voice, of course, and was Dean, and Sammy was Smokey. And me, I wonder why, I was called Loudy. And Dean Martin said, God didn't give Ruta breasts. He gave her a set of speakers.
Oh,
That's
you are
awesome.
such a dynamic person, singing and dancing. You have such talent, Ruta. You're unbelievably talented.
Well, I've been lucky in that I've been able to do a lot of wonderful things. If I wasn't making a movie, then I was working in television. If I wasn't working in television, then I was working on the stage. If I wasn't working on the stage, then I was working at Home Shopping Network, which, by the way, I have to tell you, gals, was probably the most lucrative 5 years of my life. Working, I had great products, spray vitamins, and I've really always admired anybody that was able to sell. And I think you have to believe in what you've got if you want to sell it. And I think that's why your product, the Clientele product, or do you say clientele, the French way?
Whichever you like.
Whichever you like. I think that's why everybody that ever tries it swears by it, because you believe in it. And I would not be pitching your product unless I really, from the bottom of my heart, believed in what the hell I was talking about.
Well, when I saw your name, I went by customer service one day and I see the girl writing up an order and it's for Ruta Lee. And I said, the Ruta Lee, my girlfriend, is buying. And then I called you up and you said, Pat, I've been buying this and this and this. And Perfect Coverage Compact and the Conceal and the I was so, happy to hear that you were loving and using it through the years. That was really.
I want all the ladies that are listening to us today to not just give up on trying to find something. I know what it is to get older. I know what it is when you get smile lines and you get the crease from laughing. It happens with age, no matter what you do. And yes, maybe you go get a little bit of cosmetic repair, a tune-up every once in a while. More power to you if you can do it. But I know from putting on base makeups that all you do is exaggerate every single line. The smile lines get exaggerated because you now have a crease with goo in it. And I don't care how much you wipe it out, it just doesn't go away. It keeps coming back if you use your face. And please God, you use it. Otherwise, you look like Marlene Dietrich all the time. And although she looked pretty good. But with this fabulous compact, the compressed powder that is a makeup and a powder that keeps your nose from getting shiny morning, noon, and night, you have fabulous coverage that doesn't cake in the creases and it doesn't exaggerate the creases. And I cannot beg you to try something if you haven't tried it more than I am right now, because I truly, truly believe in it from the bottom of my heart.
Thank you.
That couldn't be a better testimonial. Could not be a better.
My Perfect Coverage Compact right here.
Yes.
That's my nose or my T-zone.
He just happens to have it.
Just happen to touch up, and then you look better because it covers everything. So
now you know what I'm begging you to do is to put what the flavor is on the outside.
Okay, good idea. Make it easier to see because
I have to keep opening it.
Combine them because you use you do shadowing.
I do the shadowing, the blush and the tan I use here and on my neck so that it always helps to get rid of all of those little stupid things you get. and the light under the eyes so that my eyes pop and look big.
Great idea, Ruta. We'll take you up on that. Put light and medium and tan, so it's easy to see.
Oh yes, please.
Great idea.
And I'm going to give you a big hint right now with the conceal. One of the things that I do, because your skin tone and my skin tone are a little similar, is you've got the dual tone peptide wrinkle conceal. So one side is tan, one side is neutral.
Oh.
Put your tan on first to blend in with what you've just done with the Perfect Coverage Compact. Then put the neutral on to give it a pop. And you're going to like it even better. You're going to love it even better.
Okay. Very good.
That's the hardest tip.
That's because many people put the light first and then they touch with the tan.
Yeah.
That's a great idea, putting the darker one first and then brightening.
And popping it up.
Blend in and then pop.
Yeah.
I put on top also under my shadow because the light one opens up the eyes. We all need that. Makes you look less tired.
And of course, a marvelous tip for all the girls. I don't know how many really care about this, but you don't even have to be as old as I am, and hell, I'm older than dirt, but you start developing lines around your mouth that run vertically. And then your lipstick bleeds up into the little cracks and crevices, And so I suggest that you powder the hell out of your lips, girls, with the compressed powder. Powder. I don't put it on thick, but I mean, just after you've used it and smack that lovely little sponge thing on your lips, and then put your lipstick on, your liner, put it on first, blot. Powder again, gently, do it again, blot, and then put the inside color in. And you can kiss your way to kingdom come, and it's not going to come off. And it's not going to come off on a glass, and it's not going to come off on your mate, and it's not going to come off on anything. So that's my tip for the users of Clientele.
We're going to send you a little present too, Ruta. We just came out with a brand new product called Lotus Sheer Lip Butter. And it is something at night to help decrease the look of the lip lines.
That's wonderful.
And plump and volumize with the lotus and with aloe and coconut and safflower and cocotrienols. It's wonderful.
Oh God, it sounds delicious.
It's delicious. It's vanilla, peppermint, yummy.
Woo!
And then I was going to say, Ruta, if you put it on and you are out in company and you lick your lips because of the vanilla bean and the peppermint, it actually freshens your breath at the same time. So
what a great idea.
You ate at Frank Sinatra's house, although he's not with us any longer, but if you had a big Italian meal and you were garlic and onions, all you have to do is lick your lips and go, and nobody will think.
Oh, that's lovely. I'm thinking of a very funny story that I just love. Mary Costa, the beautiful opera star, Mary Costa, from the Met and everything else, was wearing the glue-on, not the strip eyelashes, but the glue-ons, the individual ones. And when they're glued on for a certain amount of time, they sort of cake together and they become kind of like one lash. And she was at the White House and they had served like a cream of mushroom soup or something. And she was reaching over to get salt or something. And then she looked down into her soup and there was her eyelash in the soup.
Oh my gosh.
And so she thought, what am I going to do about this, right? And so she gently picked it out with her spoon, put it up to her lips, put her napkin up and took it down and stuck this eyelash into her beautiful silk-lined Judith Lieber bag, thereby smearing soup all over this. And all I can think of is, she should have used better eyelash glue or something. But we all have our little problems and we all have our fun makeup tips. And and so I always suggest to the ladies, always carry, if you do wear false eyelashes, carry a tiny tube of surgical glue with you just in case.
Absolutely. I mean, you've got such fascinating stories and the book is so magical. There's just so many great things. And I wanted to ask you really quick, if I may, you touched on your television career. You know, we know about film, but we touched on television. How many television shows did you do?
Well, not counting the weeks and weeks and weeks of game shows or talk shows or whatever, but in guest starring appearances, somewhere right around 2000, I quit counting.
Oh my God.
And
you can imagine?
it's really quite amazing. And there were a lot of shows where I guested, you know, 3, 4, 5, even 6 times, whether it was Perry Mason or Maverick or, you know, whatever it could be. I talk in the book about things that maybe I should have done, the coulda, shoulda, wouldas that we all have in our life, you know. And sometimes I regret that I didn't go under contract at Warner Brothers when they asked me to do a series there. And why? Because they were paying that big, their stars, their big stars, including, you know, Jimmy Garner and those people were getting all of $350 a week. Sure. And I was getting as a guest, like the top, which was $750 or something a week. And so the numbers ruled. Well, then you're a businesswoman, Pat, you know, the numbers always rule. And I decided not to do that. But then I didn't stop to think about what an expensive operation it is to publicize yourself, to promote yourself, to manage yourself. You know, you need people to do that for you and you have to pay for it. Whereas at the studio, you have that great big publicity machine that's working for you. Mm-hmm. And so I don't know. Somehow, though, life has managed to be absolutely wonderful. I've never reached that huge super above the title of the movie stardom. But by God, I have worked, and it is by God. You know, I'm so grateful. I have worked really, all of my life.
Superstar, Ruta. I mean, I have to
argue thank
with you. And you, I mean, what you've done in your life, the movies, the series, and the fact that between it all, you managed to put on the biggest Hollywood charity event of the year for, I don't know, how many years did you do the Thalian Ball? How many years?
55.
55 years, you raised millions of dollars for mental health.
Yeah.
And you had the biggest stars in the world fly in and to help you do that. I mean, let's name some of the stars: Bob Hope, Lucy, Liza, Red Buttons, Carol Channing, some of the other ones.
Liza Minnelli, Phyllis Diller, Frank Sinatra, Lucille Ball, that I mentioned. Just incredible people. Sally Field.
Whoopi Goldberg.
Whoopi Goldberg, yes. We've had the greatest stars, people that not only were dazzling to the world on the screen, be it big or be it the small television screen, but who dazzled us with their philanthropic performances as well. That was exceedingly important. And we had the biggest and the best, and everybody came to entertain gratis, you know, which was just so amazing. I mean, Clint Eastwood took me 20 frigging years to get Clint Eastwood. I finally called him one day and said, listen, my birthday is coming up. May 30th is my birthday. And I want you to give me the greatest birthday present. I want you to promise to be our honoree this year in October. And he said, well, my birthday is the 31st. And I want you to promise me that you'll give me a birthday present and tell me I don't have to come. But he did come. And he was a marvelous recipient and a very gracious host for the party and just so good. Oh, I'm crazy about him. But you know, I've never worked for him. I've worked with him, but I've never worked for him. That
I only met him one time at Sinatra's house, and that was it. And it was Chuck Connors. I was with him, and Clint Eastwood took my hand as I went out of the car, and I had Clint Eastwood. It was like 6'5", and Chuck was like 6'5", and I'm tall, 5'8". I felt so petite. And I just, oh my God, when I met Clint Eastwood, he said, "You're not so bad yourself." And in those days, that was like a, you know, great moment for me in my life.
course
It
it
of
is.
course, I took my camera out and shot a picture at Sinatra's house, which nobody did at the time. But the next year,
Good for you.
Everybody brought a camera. I was
Was that the house in Palm Springs or the house in Los Angeles?
in Palm Springs.
Ah,
I would
yeah.
go to with Chuck because Chuck knew him for many, 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 many years.
Yeah.
And so they were golfing buddies. And I mean, from the golf, he would help
Sure.
with the golf tournament. And Chuck had a golf tournament in the desert in the early years before I knew him.
You know, I forgot about that.
And Frank used to come to his tournament. So when Frank started doing the tournament, then Chuck would go and help support him with a couple hundred celebrities. So, you know, between your event in Hollywood, which was the biggest event, and the Sinatra event in the desert, which was like the biggest event, I mean, I feel blessed that I got a little tiny glimpse of what all of you incredible Hollywood beautiful diamonds that you experienced in that heyday of the big studios and stars.
Well, you have been so supportive of so many of the organizations. And I know it's very difficult for someone like you or anybody that contributes mightily to any organization, because you get put on a list and all of a sudden every organization, and they're all worthwhile, are reaching into the same pocketbook, you know, and it's very tough. And when people ask me to support something or other, or pitch something or other, or come and be and whatever, I keep saying, oh my God, I can't beg for money for the Thalians and then beg for it for something else and something else and something else. And so I don't envy you, Pat, because I know you get hit on by everybody for product, you get hit on for financial support, and bless you, you seem to manage to do an awful lot of it. And surely that will see you into heaven.
Oh, well, it's a pleasure to do that. But, you know, when you have big events and you would have 1,000 people there, those are the big ones. And you had the biggest stars. I remember I'd look to the right, there'd be Ann Miller. And I'd look to the left, it would be Sally Fields. I look at the other table, it's Carol Channing. And it's like everywhere I looked, biggest stars in Hollywood were there to support you, to help you. And you and your best friend, we should mention your wonderful, talented, in heaven best friend who I adored, the unsinkable Molly Brown, Debbie Reynolds.
She truly was unsinkable in every way. I stop and think, you know, after the fact, after books were written, did I discover, in spite of the fact that we were best friends, that she was sometimes during her despairing hours living out of her car with her kids because she'd lost her house because her crazy gambling husband blew not only his millions, but her hundreds of thousands that she had earned at MGM. And it just broke my heart to think I could have said to her, come, I have a guest room. We can.
I know you mentioned that in your book, but you know, you were her best friend. You loved her and you gave her such joy. You worked together at the Thalians. You put on the best show. You both sang, you danced, you did skits. You were, you know, you're so supportive of each other that you could tell the love of the best friends that you were. And so that was really special for both of you.
I think that she was one of the most generous people that I have ever had the joy of knowing and loving. Frank was very generous, as you know. A lot of people have been generous, but she was generous not just with dollars she had earned, and Lord knows it was hard to earn those because she went out and tap danced her ass off to get out of debt so that she wouldn't have to claim bankruptcy, you know. Mm-hmm. And she did so much that I don't think the world was ever really aware of. Now, if you read her books, you find out, you know. Yeah. Read mine. I'll tell you a little bit about her too, you know.
Well, the one thing that I also find fascinating, because I was going to bring up Debbie, and I went to Girl Scout camp with Carrie Fisher. That's what I call it. But aside from that, you both played the same role, and Debbie did it obviously in the theater, in movies, and you did it on stage. And I heard that you got raved about. We already know that Debbie got raved about, but I heard that you got raved about for your stage performance of The Unsinkable Molly Brown.
Loved it.
I think one of the things that I'm proudest of in my career was to have had Meredith Willson, who wrote The Unsinkable Molly Brown, who wrote Music Man. I mean, who wrote the Carnival in Flanders, so many things, said in print to the press that Ruta is the best of any of the Molly Browns. And if she had been playing it on Broadway, it would still be running. Wow.
That's
That was just the greatest compliment I could ever hope to get. And I thank him so much. And it was very interesting. His first wife, Renee, I met when they came to see me in Molly Brown in the first place I ever played it, which was in Texas. And then, of course, I played it all over the country in many different places. And it's my favorite part to this day. And I always thought that Molly was so well reconstituted when Debbie did it on stage many, many years later. She said, I'm too old to start out as the youngster, the way Molly Brown starts out as a little kid, fighting with her brothers.
Mhm.
But if it's done in a dream sequence where I'm on the ship and thinking back my past, and I think about what I was, then you could get away with it, which is exactly what she did. So, depending on who asks, maybe I still have one Molly Brown left in me.
Oh,
Would I love to see that? I would just.
I would too.
love to see that. You'd be
It's an exhausting role. It is really
Oh.
exhausting. Oh,
I hope the young generation gets the benefit of seeing that movie, because I think it teaches such a great message, and it's really about a true story, The Unsinkable
Yes.
Molly Brown.
yes.
I got to do the commencement speech for Northwood University. They gave me an honorary
Yes.
and they asked me to speak, and they asked me to give advice to the students. And one of the things I said is that I was inspired by the movie so much of the true story of the unsinkable Molly Brown, and that in the words of Molly Brown, you should never, ever, ever give up. And when all the odds were against her, she said, row, row. And they survived. And that's something I passed on to the students. And I think the movie is so important, and for you and for Debbie to have shared that important role to bring to life something that's such an incredible story that everybody should know. I think that's a real gift from God, really.
I ain't down yet. I ain't down yet. That was
That's
Molly
great.
Brown. A very precious thing. Another sign of her generosity. In fact, I write about this in the book, in Consider Your Ass Kissed. I was drowning in the depths of despair when I was to open in Irene, which she had done on Broadway. And Brooks Costume House, which is the house in New York, sent out the costumes, and they were crap, to say the least. They were absolutely awful. And one of my guest stars in the show, Bruce Lee, no relation, and his wife had worked with her in Irene on Broadway. And he called and said, we're in trouble. Ruta is crying in her dressing room. We open in 2 days and the costumes are awful. She sent all of her costumes out to me.
Oh, gosh.
And a costume designer to help me put them in the right place at the right time.
Amazing.
Now that's my darling, generous, wonderful. And I'm sure that she is sitting up in heaven right now with Carrie and with all of the wonderful stars that did the Thalian show for us, that preceded her through the pearly gates. They're all smiling down on all of us and saying blessings for even thinking of them. It's kind of a sweet memento, isn't it?
Oh, yes. I mean, to have a friendship with a superstar like Debbie, who did movies like Singing in the Rain, that it's just there's nothing like that. Looking back, those are incredible movies.
Bundle of joy.
Where else I got very lucky. I made, of course, I made great friends with a lot of the stars. My idol was always Mary Martin when it came to stage.
Oh, yeah.
And my other idol was always Lucille Ball. because Lucille knew how to do slapstick better than anybody, but she also was a damned good serious actress, and she could do it all. And by the way, her son and daughter, Desi Jr. and Lucy with an IE, are putting together a radio show called Lucy Asks the Questions or whatever, because Lucy used to run around with her little tape recorder and record every star that she ran into anyway. And she has all of these reels and reels and reels of tape that they're now putting together in a show. And they just asked me to do it, and I did. And I answered questions that Lucy asked, which is kind of wonderful. So it's going to be Lucy's voice asking the question of all kinds of different people answering. Some of them, the good old stars, you know, from the way back when, and some the more current ones. I'm not very current, but there are a lot of current people that will be asking as well. And I've always said that she was an ideal to me because she could do anything. Carol Channing was another ideal. I sang in Carol Channing's key. You know, it's L for low. And we were both married to a low. Her husband was low, and my husband was low.
You honored Carol one year.
We sure did. We surely did. And then she wound up one of my good Palm Springs buddies. Isn't it great?
You wrote about a story about Lucy and her refrigerator.
That's what I was going to mention.
And Cheryl, let's ask about that.
Well,
she's probably turning over in her grave. I'm unhappy with what I said, but it's so true. I said she loved to play games, and she adored playing what I called Stump the Stars, which was the television version of charades that was brought out from New York by Mike Stokey, and it was just great. Beverly Garland was the girl on the other team, and I was the girl on this team. And Lucy loved games, but she loved charade. And we all used to go over to play, you know, Carol Burnett and Carol Cook and Barbara Stewart and Dick Gautier, you know, we'd all go over. And I warned everybody, don't go over hungry, because you're not going to get a pretzel. You're not going to get a peanut. You're not going to get a slice of salami. You're not even going to get a stick of celery. That refrigerator was bare. And I didn't understand it. How could she be married to a New York Jew who know what good eating is and not have a refrigerator full of food? But that was Lucy.
That's her secret, her showgirl perfect body. You know, you have to say.
I don't know. I don't know what it was, but the food was never anything that was served there.
Because I was going to ask you in relation to that, because we knew that part of the book. You know, you've kept a gorgeous figure all of these years. And as you said, quote unquote, you're older than whatever, but we don't agree with that at all. We think you are magnificent and stunning. And it's not just because I'm sitting here and blowing smoke. This is the truth.
Yes.
And everybody out there is going to agree that we can't believe this, because you just keep reinventing yourself, and it just gets better and better and better with age.
Oh, bless you, my Lord. We have to do this more often. Boy, this is like a B12 shot in that place that I kissed, you know.
But it's true.
Just great. Well, I have been blessed, first of all, with tremendous energy. Sometimes I think it's a curse, but because I'm going like the Energizer Bunny at all times, you know. And there are times when I sort of say, oh, Jesus, Ruta, sit down, knock it off, sit down and pray to God to just take a nap for a while, you know. But energy is a good thing. Makeup is a good thing. Thank God for makeup. Thank God for my clientele base. And I love that hydrating goo that you have, the elastology.
Peptide hydration. Is it the peptide hydration?
Yeah, peptide hydration.
Oh yeah, that's
that I live with. That I smear on me all the
makes
time.
the skin so pretty.
Yeah, and you know, it's precious. It's cheap. It's not, because it's a fabulous product. But every once in a while, I'll treat myself to putting it on my hands, you know, because they age terribly. You know, that's the worst thing.
Well, we have
you can always make up your face, but
And I have to give my mother credit because mom said to me one day, and that Slavic, you can do a roll up your sleeves, you can do anything. Get in the lab pad and make a cream for the back of my hands that's as strong as the cream you made for the face, because my hands are getting old. So we made Estrolift hand and nail therapy, and we'll send you some, Ruta. I don't know if
Good. Thank you.
Really, you can dip your nails in it. It has biotin nails. And it's
good.
Thick, so it rejuvenates. With the lotus seed, our patented extract, makes the hands look younger. So
that sounds like
you'll love.
That sounds like you could put it on your hair too. I mean, if it has all that good stuff in it, because my hair is very fine. I've got lots of it, but it's fine and has to be backcombed to death, you know. But for the nails, that'll be good. Oh, good.
It will help. You'll love it. You'll love it. And definitely.
And your elbows and your knees.
And have you
good idea.
Do you use the Lotus firming serum at all, Ruta?
Yes, I do. I forget. I get so married to that peptide stuff that I forget to do the other one. And it takes Cheryl to call me and bug me every once in a while to use the stuff. Damn it. Don't just.
Once a week, I'm going to be calling you.
Okay. Promise me or email me. Say something rude.
Look, you have an amazing dynamic side to your personality. And I just want to mention again in the book, which consider your ass kissed. I want everybody to go out and get this book, order it on Amazon tomorrow. And I mean, you can order it, you'll have it tomorrow. Actually, Amazon's so incredible. And you will not want to put it down. It is so entertaining because Ruta takes you through Hollywood. She discusses these different stars and the movie roles and her life. And she even tells you about what she went through with her poor grandmother, who was trapped in the Soviet Union, sent to Siberia, and how 12 years it took you. And she called Khrushchev, right? Person to person?
I did. Thank God for person to person, which doesn't exist anymore. So many of your viewers are probably too young to know what person to person was. The phone company would charge you twice as much for the call if you got your party. But if you didn't get your party, you didn't have to pay. And so I made it person to person. And I did indeed talk to Mr. Khrushchev's interpreter. And, you know, I feel like I gave that story, which is an incredible Hollywood versus a communist state story. I gave it short shrift. It deserves much more than a chapter. It should be a book of its own. Yeah. And that's what I have in mind. So my next thing is going to be, if I sit down and write that book, and if my darling assistant, Judy Diamond, will sit with me the way she did for almost 10 years with this other thing, that's how long it took me to get it together. We will get it done. It is such a wonderful story, and it deserves to be in a full book, and it deserves to be, hell, it could be a series, it could be a movie, it could be something. And it's just so beautiful because, you know, Pat, well, you too, Cheryl, we're so rah-rah America girls, you know, we really love our country and we want to see it thrive. And when I stop and think about my sweet little grandmother, who spent like 15 years in Siberia. Imagine, in her 90s. My grandfather died en route. The cattle car that they were being deported on was cold and his legs froze. And when they took off the boots, the flesh came off with it. Gangrene had set in. He died. She survived. I don't know how. She survived. And she came back, and I got her out of Lithuania thanks to the phone call to Mr. Khrushchev. And when she got off the plane, we didn't have jetways then. We only had stairs. This little lady in her babushka and her apron and the little sweater that I had brought her stepped off the plane steps, dropped to her knees, kissed the tarmac, threw her arms up and said, "Hello, America, Achu Dieve," which is thank you, God.
That's the name of your movie. And we have to call Steven Spielberg. The way you called Khrushchev, you got to pick up the phone tomorrow and call Spielberg and get this made into a movie. It deserves that. The young people need to know what life was like and the hell that communism was for the people that lived that generation, because they don't realize.
It's what's scaring me terribly about the now generation. They're all so entitled. Free schooling and free college and free this and free that, and not, what happened to the work ethic? You all grew up with the big work ethic. You earned what you got, and the harder you worked, the better it came. And I'm afraid we're not teaching that to young people now. What we're seeing is that first step of socialism becoming quite practical in the country. And that, of course, is the first rung of the stairs to hell, which is communism.
Yeah, well, it's very scary. You know, when I see what Cuba is going through now, and right off our shore, and the people are still living in this terrible oppression of communism, and they are so close to us that we could possibly do more. And I hope we do, but people
we have to.
We just take for granted, and we need to fight for freedom every day and preserve what we have, our wonderful liberties that all of the past generations have gone through so much to give to us and sacrifice and died for us, that we need to appreciate this and maintain freedom.
That's why I appreciate so much our beautiful young men and women, that we are now supporting through the Thalians and mental health, because they are willing, as I said, to put their lives on the line. We should be willing to give them whatever they need to make their lives come back to at least a modicum of what it was before we sent them to war.
Absolutely.
Agreed. 1,000,000%.
Support it. We want to help you. And I just want to tell everybody, though, that everybody has got to get this book, Consider Your Ass Kissed, by Ruta Lee. Tomorrow, go and order it. Get it at the bookstore. Get it on Amazon. Read
Order it now.
Love it.
Barnes and Noble has it.
Don't wait till tomorrow.
And you're going to love the book, and you're going to love Ruta. And we're going to have Ruta back again. And Ruta, you're just such an inspiration, because you're a few years older than we are, but you're just glamorous and gorgeous as
Just
you
a
always
little.
were.
Oh, God
And
bless you.
Know that age is nothing. You're ageless. You're just
Age is just a number, and my number is unlisted. And I have
I love that.
bit.
Can
And
we use that?
I will, of course you can use it. And I will tell you that you're too polite to ask, but I am 86 years old. And I'm proud of every single year. It's been a great life. And the Bible promises us 120. And I want every friggin' one of those years. In good health, please, God. In
Amen.
good health.
Amen.
And with my noodles still
Faculties.
working. Yeah.
And one thing that I want to mention actually really quick before we go is the three of us have a commonality. Now, you met your husband on a plane, yes? Pat met Chuck Connors, her former boyfriend, on a plane. I met my husband on a plane. Ladies and gentlemen out there, don't go to whatever.com, go to southwest.com. I want you, because that's where it's going to happen. So I would love to hear all about that story, about how you met your precious husband. If you could talk about that for a quick moment.
A quick moment? It's a long story.
All right, 20 minutes. I don't care. I've got time.
All right. I love the story. I was doing a good deed for the Thalians. They had the LPGA in your neck of the woods, my darling, in Florida, asked me to come and be their guest star at either the opening or the closing, I can't remember now, of the tournament. And they said they would give me $10,000 for the Thalians. Well, that was a lot of money. In 74, that was a lot of money. And so I went from Texas, where I was playing, and the producers of my show said, look, the next show is not selling well. Could you play an extra week, because you're sold out every night? And it'll give us time to promote the next show and get some kind of impetus going. So I can't, I've got to do this thing in Florida on Monday. And they said, take Monday off give us an extra show on the weekend. It'll make up for each other, and that way it'll all work out. So I said, okay. So I wasn't feeling great. I wanted to just go and rest, but instead I flew to Miami, and it was cold in Texas and hot in Miami, and I'm carrying a fur coat. And I get picked up in a private plane and taken over to Naples, Florida, where this was. And so I put on my eyelashes, and get out the feather boa, and I ride with the mayor in the parade, and I make my little speech and whatever it was at the dinner. Now, the next morning, I've got to go back because I've got a show to do that night in Texas. And so I run across the tarmac when they drop me off and go up to American Airlines. Wasn't Southwest, it was American. And they took pity on me and said, Miss Lee will pre-board you as soon as the flight is cleaned up. It's a turnaround flight from Dallas, and as soon as they've got it cleaned up. And I always ask for the first row, the bulkhead seat. And I was leaning on the counter like this, just miserable, not a stitch of makeup on, big glasses, a babushka tying up my hair. And I had a sniffles and a cold, and they finally said, please come in, the plane. But before they did that, I'm leaning on the counter and I see a great pair of Gucci loafers coming down the hall. And I looked up a little further, nice slacks with a crease in them, looked up a little further, a double-breasted blazer with gold buttons. A little further up, that craggy, wonderful face that's a cross between Clint Eastwood and Lee Marvin, and silver hair. And I went, oh, be still my heart. And he kept walking towards me, and right past me. And I thought, hell, ships that pass in the night. Walk down the hall. They pre-board me. I get on. I'm pushing all the stuff under the seat, and my junk is sitting in the seat next to me. And I look down, and the same pair of shoes are standing there. And he looked at me and he said, oh, is this seat taken? And I said, for the last time in my life, no. And he said, hello, my name is Webb Lowe. And I said, hello, my name is Ruta Lee. And we should be married, because then I'll be Ruta Lee Lowe, and we could open a Chinese laundry. 46 years later, he left me, the best marriage anybody had on the face of this earth, and he was pissed as hell. We never had a laundry.
Oh, that's wonderful.
God bless him in heaven.
Adored
God
you.
bless him in heaven.
He was, you know what a delicious man he was in every way.
Absolutely charming and handsome and brilliant in business. Idolized you, was right by your side at every
all the
event.
time.
And he was just wonderful in every way.
Anything
like
goes.
A movie star, just like you together.
Yeah, he did.
You like Ken, the movie star couple.
We were walking down the street together in New York one day. We had left Sardi's and we were walking towards Fifth Avenue. And Mary, that I was talking about, my opera star, was walking down the street going up towards Sardi's with her manager. And Mary was talking with her manager, and the manager said, oh my, isn't that an attractive couple coming towards us? And she looked at me and she said, that's not an attractive couple, that's Ruta and her husband. She was the cutest lady in the world. Well, I keep thinking of her with her eyelash in the water, in the soup. But anyway, he was fabulous, and needless to say, I'm grateful to God for providing a fabulous treat for me. And I think that was my reward for doing something good for the Thalians and raising money for mental health. It was that I got a husband, and he made it very clear, and he said this many times, and he was quoted many times, that he was the rudder and I was the sails on our ship of life. And I sure miss that rudder.
Oh, that's good.
Well, he sounds delicious. And I have to say that, thank you, God, also that I got a delicious one too. It took me a long time. It took me years, but isn't it wonderful?
Me too. I didn't get married young. I was, well into my 30s, late 30s when I got married. So have heart, girls. You never know.
That's right. It can happen at 62 years old too. When I was 62,
there you are. There you are.
Definitely have hope.
That's why keep using your skincare, keep using your cosmetics, keep that beautiful face.
That's
and
right.
You're going to stay young, and who knows what the future will bring.
Well, please keep providing the product. That's all I can say. And I thank you very much for the opportunity to visit with all of your viewers and all of your listeners and your staff, that wonderful staff that do this. Girls, you're both gorgeous. You're both wonderful. I'm happy to have you as best friends. And thank you for sharing about my book, which is available, can't even talk anymore, available at Barnes & Noble or one of your local bookstores. Give them the business. Everybody needs the business.
Ruta, let's close the show with your saying and your book title.
Absolutely. Everybody, I love you. Thank you for using our product. Thank you for caring about us. And above all, consider your ass kissed.
Thank you, Ruta.
Yay.
Thank you so much.
Sitting ovation.
Bye-bye, everybody. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you, Ruta.
Thank you.